not everything. Yeah, so actually, so we will record things. So I just started the recording now. And so be prepared that not everything will be smooth, but hopefully it will work reasonably well. So a few other things. During the lectures, please use the chat window to ask questions. So if you look at the bottom panel, there is a little icon for that says chat, and you can click on it and you'll see the chat. So you guys can't hear me? Okay, good. So at least some people cannot hear, a lot of people can hear me. That's good. Okay, so yeah, use the chat, and it will, if you click on the chat, it will open up on the side, and that's where you can ask questions. Oh yeah, so when you join, you will have to select join audio. So that you will do, and when you join, you should be muted. Okay, but you will be able to hear them. So a few other things. So hopefully you will receive the email about this. And so the other place where you can ask questions is on Stack Overflow. And so that's something that you should have the link to, so go there, and that's more complicated questions, and also you can ask those during, when you're between the lectures. So we will record the lectures and they will be available to everyone. Yeah, so I think that's everything. Welcome, and I'll give it over to you, Mark.
Thanks. Okay, so hi everyone. I'm Mark Grivainis. I work using Python a lot, so I will be giving you some of your lectures. There are a few other lecturers who will also be covering some content. For today, basically the goal is to go over most of the setup and then just give a high-level overview of Python and what this course is going to involve. So the format of this course is going to all be online lectures. These will cover most of the core programming concepts, and we're going to use Python to do those. We're also going to cover a bit of tooling, so using Visual Studio Code mainly to do everything, so that keeps your environment together. And we might also cover a few other packages that can be used in conjunction with Visual Studio to make your coding more efficient. The lectures all follow on from each other. So if you miss one, you might have a hard time following any of the later ones. So we kind of start with basic concepts and then get more advanced as the course progresses. Throughout the course, there are a bunch of books you can use. In the course outline, which there's a link for, we list 3 different books that for each lecture, there are some chapters that you can read, and they also go over all the concepts that will be discussed in those lectures. There will be 3 assignments throughout this course. They will start after the second week. We will go more in detail on how to complete the assignments. Due to the size of the course, we won't be able to look at each assignment and give personalized feedback, but we will release a solution that you can compare against your answers. We'll also have several quizzes throughout the lectures. So this is built into Zoom. We haven't tested this yet, but hopefully we'll get that up and running. And might be a group project. We're still working out the logistics of whether that will be possible or not. So the way this course works is there will be Jupyter Notebooks, code examples, assignments, and all the code generally will be shared on GitHub. I'll give out the slides afterwards so you can follow the links. The lectures are all going to be given on Zoom, and we will make the slides and the recordings available on OneDrive. If you have any questions, you can ask them in the chat functionality of Zoom or on Stack Overflow, and someone will get back to you reasonably quickly to answer those questions. Using Stack Overflow, if you are coding in general, Stack Overflow is the place you'll go to get answers for questions. We have our own section of Stack Overflow called NYUMC Coding Courses. This will be specific for this course, but Stack Overflow also has general questions where most things you'd want to know will have already been answered. If you'd like to search for something in the search bar, you can type in some keywords. So if you typed in course content, it would give you posts relating to course content. You can also search for tags. So by putting square brackets around what you're searching for, you can search for a specific tag. Python course is a tag. So if you ask any questions, tag it with Python course so that other students can find things very quickly. And while you're typing in the search bar, another box will pop up at the bottom, and that will give you some things you can do to do more advanced searching. So searching for specific users, searching for questions that already have answers, and things like that. If you want to ask a question, there's this button here to ask a private question. The private question means that it's private to the NYUMC Coding Courses section of Stack Overflow. Once you click that button, a form will open. And basically, you want to give it a title, which should be specific to the problem so that everyone will know what you're trying to solve just by reading the title. You can then enter your question in the box of the body here. If you would like to insert some code, there are these braces here. If you click that button, anything you paste in will be formatted. So it makes it much easier to read your code, as it'll highlight certain words as if it was being typed into a code editor. Finally, tag your post. So this would be the Python course tag so that we know all the questions that are related to our course. And once you've asked a question and someone answers it, you will have the option of saying that that answer is correct. So please do that so that it's easy to see what questions have been answered and what questions still need an answer. So the goals of this course are to teach you how to solve problems using programs. One part of this is how to use pseudocoding. So this is how to write just on a piece of paper the structure of a program. This is an important part of programming when you're discussing with other people, that you don't actually need a computer in front of you to show them the flow of how a program will work. You'll also achieve some level of proficiency using Python. Python is a massive language which is used for many things. It is hard to know all of it. Very few people do know all of it. So you will know enough of it to get by. We're also going to cover best practices. So this will be how to keep your code clean, how to approach a project that is not going to get out of hand over time, and how to share your code with other people. We're also going to cover some analytics and informatics systems. So how to work with large data sets, how to create plots and visualizations. And this might change as the course progresses. We'll see what people would like, and we can add lectures for that later on. We're going to cover some basic tools for efficient programming. So programming is a massive field. There are lots of different tools. We'll speak about some of the ones that we use, and you can also find some yourself. There are lots of online resources regarding tooling. Conda is a package manager that allows you to install other people's Python scripts. So we'll go over how to use that package manager to install very specific packages that will help you solve problems using Python. We will be using VS Code as our development environment. This is a nice program that keeps everything bundled together. You can run your Python codes within the editor. It'll give you suggestions on how to complete your code. It'll also help you if you get any errors. It'll underline them and give you suggestions on how to fix your errors. We're going to cover debugging. So if your program's not working, how can you approach it to figure out how to fix it and find out where all your errors are being created? We will also cover briefly creating your own packages and managing packages that you're using for your own code. And finally, version control. Version control is a system for keeping track of changes to your files. So this is a topic on its own, and we will cover the basics of this. What it mainly does is lets other people work on the same code simultaneously, and then you're not going to run into any issues where two people have made the same change to a file or different changes to a file, and it's hard to know which is the correct change. So hopefully by now you have all set these steps up. So we will be using miniconda. Conda is the package I mentioned in the previous slide. We are using the 3.7 version of Python. I think that 3.8 is the newest, and 3.9 will probably be coming out soon, but 3.7 is very stable, so it's a good one to use. Most libraries and packages will work with Python 3.7. Don't use Python 2 anymore, as they are no longer supporting it from the beginning of this year. For Git, this is a program that does version controlling. So to get all of our lectures, we use Git, and you'll need to install this to be able to download the course content. VS Code is an IDE, so an integrated development environment. This is one of many IDEs, and I like this one as the terminal is built into it. We will go over that a bit later, and you can run Jupyter from inside this editor, which is very useful. A lot of other editors don't let you do that. You'll also need a GitHub account to download. You also need a GitHub account to be able to download the course content. These packages, you don't have to worry about installing them yet. So yeah, sorry, I'm reading the chat. If you have had any issues, we will help you afterwards, and you can post something in Stack Overflow and we'll give you instructions. So what are programs? So what they are is they are ways that you can use computers to solve complicated problems, generally problems that are going to happen often, and you want to solve them using different data or at different times, things like that. And specifically, computers are sequences of instructions that computers can understand. So computers don't speak English, they speak a very complicated language called machine code, and Python is basically an interpreter to go from something that's close to English, and it translates that to something that the computer can understand. So the way programs are structured is you have a logical series of steps, and these steps then perform some computations or implement some form of process, and you are applying this to some input, which can be files, it can be user input, it can be data from the internet. There are many ways you can get input, and this would be using some language, which generally consists of a lexicon, syntax, and semantics. So Python is all three of these and a little bit more. So why would you want to learn Python? One of the main powers of Python is that it's very generic. Python is used for building websites, it's used databases, people write games in Python. Informatics and analytics is a big one with big data. Python is becoming the standard for that. So if you want to go into those fields, Python is a very good language to learn. Data science and machine learning is all Python. Mainly, I mean, Google and all the big companies use Python for their packages and scientific programming. One of the benefits of Python is it's very easy to learn. Python, they try to keep the language as close to English as possible, which is not always the case with a lot of languages. So it makes it quite easy to understand and read the code while you're writing it. There are also a lot of built-in data types and structures to help you set up your code to do the things you want to do. So you don't have to take the time to set these up. This comes into batteries being included. This just means that everything you need is provided. You don't have to figure out how to set up complicated things. Once you've installed it, you can start coding, and it's pretty easy to get everything running. Python's very expressive, less verbose, so it's pretty easy to start writing code. This is one of the main reasons I like Python, is for you to go from an idea to something working takes a day. Whereas if you're doing things in Java and C++, which are more complicated language, it can take a long time just to set up the scaffolding for your project before you can even start trying to solve anything. So this comes back into the easy to learn and use. There's the clean syntax, easy to read, it's very close to English. So there are not a lot of strange commands, though those do come in later on, but just to get started, it's actually very easy. You can use Python to run other languages. So Python can run R commands, it can run Java commands. Python's actually built off C and C++, so you can write C and C++ in your Python code, though this is quite an advanced thing to do, and I don't have much experience doing that. There are thousands of people writing Python code, so one of the big advantages is that any problem you run into, someone else will generally have run into that same problem, and there will be someone who has answered it. So Stack Overflow generally has answers to most questions you'd want to ask, especially for the content of this course that we're doing. So what Python is two things. So the one is the language specification, which are the lexicon, syntax, and semantics. So this is how you would write Python. So the English parts of the language, and this tells you what words you can type and how they're related to the back end is handled by the interpreter. So what the interpreter does is it takes the code you've written in Python and it then translates that into something the machine can understand. Python does this in real time. So there are other languages which are called compiled languages. So they will generally take your code and translate it into machine language. Python does this while the program's running. That's a little bit out of the scope of this course. And then for running Python programs, there are two different ways you can do this. The first is interactively. So this, you run your code line by line, command by command. And this is very useful if you have a new data set and you're trying to pull some meaning out of it. So you can set up your plots and your visualizations to view specific questions as you come up with them, and it keeps track of all the changes you're making to your data. The other option is to run your script in batch mode or execute it. So this will start from the beginning of your program and run it till the end, and it won't stop in the middle. So this is more if you have a lot of files that you already know what you want to do, you execute a script on those files and it will process them, something along those lines, and output your results at the end. All right, so that was just a high-level overview of Python. For the rest of today's lecture, I'm going to go over in these slides setting up Visual Studio to start coding in Python. Once I'm done doing that in the slides, I will then do this all live. So we'll do all these steps again to set up an environment, and then hopefully by the end of this, you will all have a working version of Visual Studio Code that we can run some Python code in. And you'll also have all the lectures for this course. The lectures might change throughout the course, but we'll tell you how to update that when the content does change. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is have Visual Studio installed. Hopefully you've done this. The next thing we will do is install the Python plugin. By default, Visual Studio Code does not have a Python support, but this plugin will give all the things you need to run Python code in Visual Studio. We will then create a new Conda environment for this course. What an environment is it's a separate installation of Python. So this allows the version that we use for this course of Python, the Python version for this course, to differ from your computer's version of Python. So often your computer needs Python to do things. This allows you to run two different versions of Python without breaking anything. After that, we're going to run a hello world, which is always your first script that you run. This is just to see that everything's installed correctly. And we will run this in Visual Studio Code. We will then create a Jupyter Notebook and run a cell of the Jupyter Notebook doing the same hello world thing to make sure that's installed. Okay. And finally, we will clone the GitHub repository so that we can get the course material and create a new branch. I'll explain that in more detail later. So first things first, if we open Visual Studio Code, the first time you open it, you will get the landing page. This is what the landing page looks like. On the right, it gives you some options for customizing things. On the left part of the main window, it gives you some help. It tells you to start something new, or you can open something existing if you have existing projects. I have linked here for keyboard shortcuts. It's very useful to learn some of the basic keyboard shortcuts, though there is only one shortcut you really need to know, because that'll allow you to type what you want and it'll give you options. We'll look at that a bit later on. So if this isn't the screen you're getting, if we had opened a project and opened Visual Studio Code, it would open up all the files that were previously open in the project that was previously open. So Visual Studio keeps track of what project you were working on, and when it opens, it picks up where you left off when you closed it the last time. So the first thing we're going to want to do is install the Python extension. The way we do that is by clicking the Extensions tab. Visual Studio Code has got lots of extensions. Once we've clicked on this tab, we type Python in the search bar, and we select the Python option. This one should have, what, 18 million downloads. So look for, generally when I'm working with extensions, I look for the one that's got the most downloads, because that's generally going to be the best one. Once you've done that, you can click install. I've already installed this, so it says uninstall, but if you click install, it'll install the Python package. At that point, you will have Visual Studio ready to go for writing Python code. The next thing we would want to do is open a project. So we will open a new project to just run some test programs. The way we do this on Windows, we can push Control-O. On Mac, we can push Command-O. And once we've done that, it'll open this file browser. We can then navigate somewhere on your computer. I always use the desktop for these things. Make a new folder on your desktop called ITP test and select that and click open. So once we've done that, we will then have an open project. This is the UI you will be looking at, though you might not have the terminal in your UI. So what we have on the left is the file browser. So these are all the files in our project. When I took the screenshot, I already had some files created. So yours would be empty on this side. You would still then have the welcome screen in the code editor. Because I made this Python file, this is what's open in my code editor at the moment. And finally, you will have the terminal. If you don't have the terminal, you can push Control backtick to open the terminal on both Windows and Mac. And backtick is the key under escape. So that will then open your terminal. So this is basically what you'll be doing all of your coding in. There aren't many different places we'll be using. Later on, we'll do debugging, which is another option on the side here, but we'll cover that when we get there. The next step is to create a Conda environment. So this will all be in the terminal. So once we've opened the terminal, we would type this command. So Conda create -n ITP 2020 Python equals 3.7 Jupyter, and press enter. So just a quick breakdown of what this command is doing. The first word you're typing is the name of the script or program that should be executed. So in our case, that's called Conda, and this was installed with miniconda. The next is the name of the functionality you would like to use with Conda. So we would like to create something. In this case, we are creating a new environment. -n is what's called a flag. So this allows us to pass some value into the creation process. What -n stands for is the name. So this is the name of the environment we're creating, which is ITP_2020. And everything after that are names of packages we would like to install. So in this case, we would like to use Python 3.7 as the Python version for this environment that we've created. And we would like to install the Jupyter Notebook interpreter so that we can run Jupyter Notebooks within this environment. Once you push enter, it'll give you a list of all the packages that will need to be installed, and it'll ask you to say yes or no if this is correct. you say yes, and it will then install all these packages into the new environment that's been created. So once we've installed our new environments, the first thing we would want to do is go to the file browser, right click, say new file, and call that file example.py. As soon as we have a Python file within this project window, you will then have the option to select what the Python interpreter. So when you click this button, it'll give you a list of all the different Python interpreters on your computer. You will select the ITP 2020 interpreter.
Mark,
Yes.
sorry to interrupt, but it seems like a lot of people are saying that you're going too fast.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I will be
If you can slow
again.
down a little bit, it seems like,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, sorry. Yeah, I will be going over all of this again a second time, doing it in real time. So for now, just follow, don't try implementing it. And then when I do it again, I'll go much slower that time around. Do the steps later. So for now, I'm just giving you an outline of the process. Okay, so once we've created a new file, it'll open in the code editor. We can then enter some code. So in this case, we're saying print the words hello world. And once we've done that, we can run the script by clicking the run button. And this will then execute that code in this window, in the terminal at the bottom. Over there, you can see the output hello world. Okay, so the next thing we'd want to do is run a Jupyter Notebook. So the way we would do this is by opening the command palette. This is done by using Control-Shift-P on Windows or Command-Shift-P on Mac. And this window allows you to do pretty much everything. You can create new files, you can run Python programs, you can do anything you can do in Visual Studio has a command listed in the command palette. In this case, what we want to do is create a new blank Jupyter Notebook. So if we type create or Python create new blank Jupyter Notebook, it'll give you that option. And when you select it, it will give you a new Jupyter Notebook. Jupyter Notebooks consist of cells, which you can execute code in. So in this case, we're going to say print hello notebook in the cell. And then if you click the little run button here, it'll execute that cell. And you will then get the output underneath the cell. And finally, what we're going to do is clone the repository for the class. So once again, we open the command palette. We type git clone into that. We press enter. It'll then ask for the URL. This is the URL for the repository. When we input that in there and press enter, it will then ask us where we would like to install this on the computer. So I would put this on the desktop. So go to the desktop, make a new folder called ITP, select that folder and click select repository location. This will then download all the notebooks from the internet to your local computer, so from GitHub. And you will then be able, then you can click open and it'll open that project in your current version of VS or your current open instance of VS Code. Okay, so once we've done that, the last thing we would want to do is make a new branch. So what a branch is it allows you to have different versions of code. So you can have your version of the code and my version of your code on your computer at the same time. To do this, you click master in the bottom corner. You then click create a new branch and you can enter the branch name my code. So then master will contain all of the lecturer's notes and my code will contain all of your notes. Just make sure that you're on, if you click here and select my code, that you're on that whenever you are doing any of your code and you're on the master branch when you're pulling other code. But we will cover this again whenever you have to do this so that it gets refreshed. So just 1,000-foot overview of Git. So what Git is it's a type of version control. It allows you to track changes within your files. So this means that you don't need to save copies of your files ever. You just save checkpoints of what your files look like. And it'll allow you to roll back to previous changes of your files if something's wrong. Something else is that you can have branches, which I just explained. So this will allow you to have multiple versions of the files, and this will allow you to have your own versions of these files. And we will give more information on this throughout the course. So that's the end of my presentation for now. I will release these slides on the OneDrive, but the next thing we're going to do is all these steps that I just did in the slides, we will do them in Visual Studio Code, and I'll go much slower this time so that everyone can keep up. Right, so the first thing would be to open Visual Studio Code. That is going to land you on this landing page, hopefully. And I will go very slowly now, so I'll wait for like a minute or two so everyone can get this open. Okay, so once you have this open, what you're going to want to do is click the extensions tab, which is these 4 little squares. So I've got a bunch of extensions that I use for my day-to-day. All that you need is the Python extension. So in the search bar at the top, we type Python. It should be the top one, hopefully. And if we click that, it'll bring up the page for this extension. And there will be an option to install it listed over here. So if you're wondering, if you want to know more about this, this actually does give a very good overview of what all you can do using this extension. VS Code is very customizable. So most things that are possible can be changed to suit exactly what you would like to do. It's not something that I'm going to cover unless it's something that I have to. So you can go to the preferences, and in your settings, there is a set of settings for this Python extension that allows you to customize everything about it. Okay, so hopefully most people have got this installed now. The next thing we want to do is go back to the Explorer, which is at the top over here. Let me make my window a bit bigger. Okay. So currently we don't have anything open. Some of you might though. So in that case, push Control O or Command O, depending on if you're a Mac. Okay. Yeah, I'll wait a bit longer then. So, I mean, while we're waiting, actually, I won't go over anything because people might be busy. So I'll wait another minute before I carry on. Right, is yours finished installing now? Okay. All right. Should have asked if anyone's not finished installing. Yeah, that would be a better option, I think. All right, so once you're done with that, either you can go File, Open, or Command O on a Mac, Control O on a Windows computer. What that'll do is it'll open your file browser. You can then go to the desktop and make a new folder called ITP test. This might look slightly different on Windows. I think that the Windows is a little folder with a plus to make a new folder. I might be wrong about that. So once you've done that, we click Create. And with this folder selected, we then click Open. So that'll then reopen VS Code with that folder we've made as the root of our project now. So you can see that in where the name of all your files in the project. So at this point, VS Code doesn't know what type of project we're trying to make. So it's not going to give us any Python specific suggestions. So if we add a Python file to our project, then it will pick up that we are trying to make something in Python. Okay, so let's go over. So when you're in the open and you have that folder and you click the open button, this is something how do we do this in Windows? So if you double click on that folder, does that work? That could be the issue. Okay, we'll cover that. I'm just trying to think what the other method of doing this could be. Because open generally would open a folder, not necessarily just a file. Yeah, use open folder, not open file. Oh, yes, I might have, due to Windows and Mac being different, the Control K is probably the shortcut you want to use. I apologize for that. This is something we're just going to have to get around because, yeah, I mean, I don't have a Windows computer to test all of this on, so there might be some small differences here and there. Once you've got this folder open, you can either right click and go new file, or else there's an option at the top here to make a new file. So you click that and call this example.py. And when we run this, it will probably give you this warning as well. If it doesn't, in the lower left corner here, we can select the Python interpreter. At this point, we don't actually have a Python interpreter yet, so we still need to install one. And the way we can do this is by going View at the top and clicking Terminal, or else using Control backtick. Either of those options will be the same. So this will then bring up the terminal at the bottom of your Visual Studio workspace. The other thing Visual Studio should do is open this in your current directory that you're working in. So if you make any changes, it'll always be relative to your project, which is a nice thing to have happen. So once we have this, we would type conda create -n. I'm just going to type it out and then wait a while. Okay, so that message, wait, yeah, let me just do that. That's actually a great idea. Copy, paste. There we go. Wait, no, I'm sending things to the wrong people. Okay, so if you're getting that Conda command not found error, did you install miniconda? Something else you might want to change is if you click on this drop down here on Windows, I think there should be an option for PowerShell. That might be a better option than Bash if that is what's selected. So creating the file, you click on either right click new file or the little icon with the plus to create a new file. Okay, so we'll have to make something on Stack Overflow to figure out why that's not working, especially if you you might have different issues for why Conda is not being found. Okay, now open terminal, it's blank, nothing showing. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's, so do you have anything in the terminal? It's just completely blank. So if you type pwd, what does that do? Okay, so I think that's installed. Okay, so this is a bigger issue than I thought it was going to be. Under Windows, Conda is not automatically added to the path. That probably is the error. So I will do a Stack Overflow giving instructions on how to add it to the path. Okay, I think we could actually maybe do that from here. Let's go. I'm just going to have a look quickly. If we go settings, extensions, Python, search for Conda. Okay, so you can set your Conda path within VS Code. That the thing is, you're going to need to know where you installed it to do that, which I'm going to have to look up. And let's think what else. So for now, let's just carry on without doing Conda. Okay, wait, yeah, I'm just gonna, we've got time. I'm gonna wait a while. If you just follow that link that was just posted in the chat. Yeah, following these steps will fix the problem for you, hopefully. Just make sure that you've installed miniconda or anaconda before this. On a Mac, you shouldn't be getting that error because generally Conda is installed to the path correctly. So, but sometimes that isn't the case. Instead of Bash, use PowerShell. Some of these errors might be solved by restarting. So the Python interpreter is installed with Conda. So that's what we're waiting to do now. So when we give it the install command like this, this is telling it what Python interpreter to use for this environment. I'm just going to run this for now, and then we can wait a while longer still. Would it be possible to set up a poll to get the numbers of how many managed to install Conda and how many didn't?
Yes, I can launch a poll right now.
Thanks.
Let's see. Do you guys see the poll? Yes,
Yes.
people are answering.
Okay. So for those of you who have got it installed, we'll go over this again, but in the bottom left-hand corner here, it says select Python interpreter. If you click that, a list of Python interpreters will come up. And if you look through, you probably won't have as many as I do, but somewhere in here, it will have ITP 2020 listed. And if it doesn't, we might just need to restart Visual Studio Code. So if you don't have it listed, my recommendation would be to just quit, open again. All right, so.
Can you guys see the results of the poll?
Yes.
Yeah, good. So it quite a few, 62 did not succeed.
Yes, so we will spend some time going over that. So if you closed and opened again, you will then see the ITP 2020 Python environment. You can just select that, and that will be where you are. Okay, so the ones that it didn't work is generally, sometimes I've run into problems with Conda where it doesn't just work immediately, and it's not always the simplest thing to fix. The first thing you should try is definitely the link that was posted to add Conda to your path. Something else you could do is in your settings, set the Conda path, which would also fix the problem. Okay, so if it pops up with things like Pylint is not installed, you can definitely install it. I've got all those on the side of my window here with some extra things. This will just install some packages that will give you suggestions for your code while you're typing it. So if you just say yes to all of those, it will install, it should install all of them. If it doesn't, it's not going to stop Python from working. All right, so for those who couldn't get it working, make sure that you've installed miniconda. And try again, try close and open Visual Studio Code and try again, and then finally try add it to your path. So in your settings, if you type Conda, it will subset your settings to only include things that include Conda. Otherwise, in your settings under extensions, there is a Python tab, and you can look through that to find the Python Conda path.
Mark, let me know when you want me to do another poll later on.
Okay, let's wait another minute or two and see, because yeah, some of these issues are going to be quite specific to the laptop, so it might not be so easy to fix it. Yes. So, okay, can't find the settings. Settings on a Mac will be under Code Preferences Settings. On Windows, it'll probably be under Edit Settings. On Windows, you can push Control comma to open. On Mac, you can push Command comma, and that'll open your settings. So that's the shortcut to do that. Yeah, there we go. That also works. So lower left is a cog, and you can click settings there. If miniconda is in your applications, that probably is why it's not working. Wait, let me just double check. Because generally miniconda installs, the default place for miniconda is generally in your home directory. So not in your applications folder. But what you can do is just go and put applications / miniconda in your path over here, and that should fix that. So if you just update what your path is over here and then click somewhere else, it will update that value. Yeah, so generally in answering the question on spaces, when you're working with things in the terminal, spaces are used to separate commands. So you can't have spaces in your names. What you need to do is use underscores to separate things so that it's treated as one object instead of 3 separate objects. So you need to always make sure not to have any spaces in file names and things like that. Otherwise, you can run into some problems. Escaping, unhiding. What operating system are you on that it's hidden? Generally, it shouldn't be hidden. It should be right at the top of your screen. So like all the way at the top. Like often it's separate from the actual window that you're working on. Okay. So in terms of adding the path, what you can do is click on this cog over here, go to settings. So the cog's on the bottom left. We click on settings. It'll open our settings options, like options panel. In the search settings, we type in Conda. And once we push enter, it will then give us this entry over here saying Python Conda path. And in this option over here, just fill out where the miniconda 3 folder is on your computer. Yeah, you would have to adjust the path to miniconda. Anaconda and miniconda are the same thing as their base. Anaconda is just much bigger than miniconda because it has a lot of packages included in it. I will send the command. There we go. Okay, can we run another poll, David, just to see if we're getting anywhere?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm running it now. I'll just do the same one.
If you're on Windows, it will generally be in so C drive, program files, or so either program files or program files x86. So it'll be in one of those two folders generally. So Conda's path is if you type, so you installed miniconda.
Mark, so it looks better right now. 33 said no, but fewer people answered than last time.
Okay, some are saying they couldn't see the poll.
Oh,
okay.
I'll leave it open a little longer.
Okay, I'm having problems giving path. Yes, so if I had a Windows computer, do any of the teachers have a Windows computer?
No, sorry, Mark.
Okay. Oh, so if, I mean, one option is if Toby could then like just walk through some steps on how to try and fix this, it could be useful.
Okay, so now roughly the same number of people answered the poll, and 44 said that they have problems.
So
So
more
it's
people.
better than before, but it's still.
Okay. Yeah, generally that setting the things to the path is all that you need to do. Let's just see. Yes, so if you type Conda and you get a command not found error, that means that your operating system doesn't know where Conda is. So if you'd want to change from bash, over here is the little drop down that you can select what type of shell you want to use. So if you click the plus next to that, no, I thought that. So if you select default shell, will give you an option on what your default shell is. So sorry, that's what you should be doing. If you're on bash, click this drop down, say select default shell and use PowerShell if you're on Windows. On a Mac, using bash is fine. On Windows, the default will be CMD, which is not what you want to use. Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah. So, I mean, try reinstalling Aniconda or Miniconda and then make sure that you do select that option because that'll fix this problem for everyone. Bash and Python. You should be fine. On Windows, you might have less options. Package not found error for Jupyter. So Jupyter 3.7 isn't what, so Python 3.7 is what we're doing. So the command was, let's go back. So it was Python equals 3.7. So what the equal sign is doing is taking the package on the left of the equal and getting the version on the right of the equal sign. For Jupyter, you don't need to do that. So it's just going to install the most up-to-date version of Jupyter. So I think that's probably the error you're getting. Okay, well, in that case, it would just be your username instead of Tobias. Yeah. What path would you like to change? So like this top row that I have here is going to be different in mine because I'm using Z shell. If I change this to bash, it'll probably be a better idea. So let me just open new shell. So this is more what you would have. If you wanted to list the path that you're in, pwd is the command to do that. And pwd will list the path to your current directory. So which Conda will give you the path to Conda? The problem with this is that Conda already needs to be in the path for this to work. So if you get a Conda not found error, which Conda isn't going to tell you where it is. So generally, this is the biggest, like the hardest logistical part of this course is everyone's computer is different. So a lot of the time, the solution for one person might not work for you. So we're going to try and get through as many as we can. And then even after this lecture's finished, we'll make a post on the Stack Overflow that we can carry on fixing this for everyone. So on a Mac, just having bash isn't strange. Generally, that is what you would have. You wouldn't have anything else. So Z shell is something I installed extra. So bash is what most people would have. Okay. Okay, so for those of you that this is working, like let's just go on to the next step so that at least you can try that. Then, like I said, we'll do this all again. So what you can do is go to this file that you've opened, and if you start typing print, it will give you code completion. So this tells you what options you have for the word you're typing, and it then gives you a definition of what print is and the help documentation for that. So what print does is it will print output to the terminal when the programs run. And if we type hello world, so this is going to print. The brackets indicate that this is something that should get executed. It's a function. And what's in the brackets is what should get printed. And the quotation marks tell Python that this is a string that we should print. So in the next lecture, we're going to go over the strings and things like that in far more detail. For now, this is just to make sure that your code is working correctly. I'll run this again. Okay, so once this is done, yes, you can write comments in Python. So the way you do that's with the pound sign. So anything following the pound sign will be a comment. So once you've clicked the run button, what will happen is it will run your program and print the output to the terminal. So this is what you would hopefully be getting if your setup is correct. Okay, let's go. So on a Mac, if you want to install something using bash like that, the way you would do that is you would go to the terminal. So if you go to the file browser and then go applications, utilities terminal. So, oh, actually, we don't even have to do that. This is the terminal. It's the same thing. So you would just type bash / downloads miniconda, whatever that is. So what tilde is doing is it's saying it's your user directory, downloads is the folder in your user directory, and miniconda is the name of the download that should be installed. So miniconda 3.sh. I can't remember what the full name was.
Mark, maybe if you can explain a little bit about what you're calling when you call the Python and then you're calling the script. I think people are a little confused about what they're actually running.
Oh, so like by clicking the plus over here?
The second to last command that you wrote in your terminal.
I did not, oh, so this command up here. Okay,
Yeah.
So basically when you click run in VS Code, it will automatically fill that out. But what it is actually doing is it's running Python and it's giving it the name of a script to run. So what that is doing is essentially telling it, just like Conda, we are running the Python program, and the input for that program is the example.py script. So when it fills out this full path like this, what it's doing is it's just saying exactly which Python should be used to run the script. So in our case, it's the Python inside the ITP 2020 Conda environment. And it's also just giving the full path to where the script file is. So on my desktop in the ITP test example.py. So that's the nice thing about using an IDE. If you just click the run button, it'll automatically fill all the stuff out for you, and then you don't have to type all those long things out. Pylint is what's called a linter. We will cover this later on. What this does is, I'm just trying to think. So Pylint looks at your code and tries to find stylistic errors. So some things that you should do is always use single quotes and not double quotes, not single quotes. So Pylint will give you a warning when you do things like this. And then something else I installed is called black. So if you have black, if you watch here, when I save, it will automatically replace that. So these are just things to make your life easier as a coder. So it keeps your code neat. If you're using too many variables, or something we're going to cover later on, it gives you a warning saying things like that. So for auto completion, you push enter when it gives you an option. So as soon as you have something here, if you push enter, it'll carry on filling it out. So main is another example. Then it'll expand out to this if name in main, which something we'll also cover later on.
So Mark, so I launched another poll, and there is still quite a few people, like 29 so far, 30, who has said that they did not succeed to print Hello World.
And how many did succeed?
93 right now.
Okay, now we're doing well.
And a lot of people didn't answer also.
Okay.
So there are, yeah. So what I would say is that maybe we can have a separate session for the ones that didn't succeed.
I think, yeah, I mean, if it's, the number's not too big, that's definitely
Yeah, right now it's 35.
Okay, so yeah.
So I think, yeah, let's schedule a separate session before the next lecture.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be a good idea. Then we can go one by one
yeah.
and get everything working.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, that. So when your lines don't autocomplete, what's the name of the file? Make sure that you've got the .py extension, and also make sure that you have the Python extension installed. Because if I made a file called something that doesn't exist, it's not going to know that this is a Python file, so it's not going to give me suggestions for that. This is the first time we're doing the recording, so hopefully soon. I'm not sure how long the upload is going to take.
Yeah, I haven't tried the recording yet, so I'm not sure how long, but it should be pretty fast.
Yeah, so I mean, we'll put that into the OneDrive as the lecture's done. Okay, so for those of you who things are working, let's just do the last step, which is to create a new Jupyter Notebook. So either Command-Shift-P, Control-Shift-P on Windows, or else you can go to View, Command Palette, which will bring up that same command palette, and then type create. And if you look through this, there'll be an option for create new blank Jupyter Notebook. Select that. And this will then open that Jupyter Notebook. Here is a cell, and in the cell we can type print hello notebook, which is the same as our other example. It's just now we're running this in Jupyter. And if we click the little plus, it should now execute that cell. So opening Jupyter Notebook, you'd want to go View, Command Palette, or push Command-Shift-P on a Mac or Control-Shift-P on a Windows. So that will open this palette at the top. And then if you type create, it'll give you all the options for creating. And we would like to create a new blank Jupyter Notebook. Jupyter doesn't actually have to be installed first, as far as I know. But if you set up the Conda environment the way with the command I said, it will be installed. Okay. I mean, the reason mine probably worked is I had Jupyter installed somewhere else, and that's why it worked all right. Yes, there is a command for running instead of pressing the play. In Jupyter, you push Control Enter to run a cell. When you're running things in the regular Python script execution, generally I run things with debugging, which is F5, but you can set up another shortcut for doing that if you want to. Okay, so if you're getting that Jupyter server not started, make sure that you're on the correct environment. So down in the bottom left where it says Python, click that and choose the ITP 2020 option. If this ITP 2020 option isn't here and you have installed it, just close and open VS Code again. So the way you install Jupyter is what you can do is, let's think. So we can type conda, if you've installed the environment but you didn't install Jupyter, you can type conda activate ITP 2020, which will then activate your conda environment. And once you've done that, you can type conda install Jupyter to install Jupyter. Is that all the error message that you're getting? So the could not find Conda environments, you probably spelled that wrong when you were typing it. Maybe, I don't know, that'd be my guess. So you can also type Conda env list to list all your Conda environments. I have a lot. You should hopefully not have that many. Yeah, so everyone is having problems with Conda. We will schedule another session at some point before the next lecture to go over and set this up for everyone. Okay, so if you just have the base environment, you still need to run that conda create -n ITP command above your question where you sent the conda environments. If you were prompted to install Jupyter, just install it for now. At the start of the next lecture, I will go over creating an environment again so that everyone can be on the same page. One of the main things with Python and R is it depends a lot on what you want to do. So RNA analysis and things like that, Python's hasn't got as many packages as R does, but overall I prefer Python to R, but that's personal preference. I've just learned both of them, and then you can make up your own mind. Okay. So that error that you just posted means that the path you gave for miniconda is most likely not correct. So typically our Python's used all over the place. So Python's used on very low performance computers like Arduinos and Raspberry Pis to control robots and things like that. It's used to build web services. It's used for machine learning, data analysis. R, I would say, from what mostly I've seen, is used for data analysis. I'm sure you can do all those things with it, but generally I find it harder to find the package I need with R, and the documentation for R is normally not as good as for Python. So if you can't get something to work, you're more likely to find someone giving you a solution in Python than you are in R. Okay, yeah. So then you can type conda install Jupyter. So what this is doing is once you've activated the Conda environment, this is telling Conda to install a package, and Jupyter is a package, so it'll install that. Okay, so that error that you're getting with the Conda means that you need to add Conda to your path, most likely. So it can't find Conda. I would try closing and opening Visual Studio Code. So just a note when working with the terminal, if you make changes to the terminal, like updating the path or things like that, often you need to restart the terminal for those changes to be loaded in your current terminal that you have open. Okay, so in terms of the last question, my guess over here is you're missing something in the path that you provided, because it goes user Gadia 01/opt/activate. That activate is normally found within the miniconda directory. So you probably need to put, change that wherever it is to, I'll just paste it in the message here. Okay, so I'll just write it. So you should have this miniconda. Oh wait, this is sending to the wrong thing again. Okay, I'll put it in this window so everyone can see it. Generally, when you've got your path to something, the activate is a script that gets run. So if I go and list my miniconda, you will see that inside here, there should be an activate script. It might be inside. What are our options? Probably inside bin. Okay, so let's go inside the bin. So inside the bin directory, there will be up at the top an activate script. So what it's saying is it can't find the path to that activate script. Pilot errors are generally errors for your code. So a lot of the time, it's telling you that something's wrong on your first line of your file. Invalid. So this, by the syntax being invalid, it means that you've got something in your file that Python can't understand. So if I did something like that, having a number as the start is not valid. So there I'm getting an invalid syntax command for line 2. So that's just warning me that something I've typed is not valid Python code, and it's telling me that I need to change that to make it valid. So starting with the number, you're not allowed to do that in Python. So that makes it invalid syntax. So if you install miniconda, I don't know if you'll have the Anaconda navigator. Okay, so I mean, we're almost out of time now. Let's just clone. So the last thing we'll do now is clone the Git repository. We'll go over the steps, and everyone who couldn't get Conda working now, I will make a post on the Stack Overflow, and we will get to fixing those like one at a time so that everyone has it working at the end, because it's hard to follow in the chat exactly what problems everyone's having.
Yeah, and then, yeah, so we'll try it on Stack Overflow, and then we can also maybe Monday afternoon for the set up another session for the remaining problems.
Yes, no, that sounds like a good idea. So with the
and we'll send out an email later today.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so for the last thing, once again, we use the command palette like we did for the Jupyter Notebook. So Command Shift P, Control Shift P, or View Command Palette. You can then type git, and one of the options will be clone. So this is going to be difficult to do because you need a very long URL at the moment. I'll post it. Actually, wait, I can post that in the chat now. Okay, so there is the URL that you need. So when it asks for the URL, you paste in that URL. Once you've done that and you push enter, it's going to ask you where to put this on your computer. So we would go desktop, new folder, call it ITP. This is just what I'm doing. just make sure, you know, whatever you do, you know where to find it. And once we've selected that folder, we can say select repository location, and this will then download all those files. This is probably going to be slowish because a lot of people are doing it at the same time. I don't know how, maybe it won't be. And then once you have this option, if you click open, it will open that project, and you will now have all the lectures listed down the left-hand side. And you should be able to open these Jupyter notebooks and go through them and see what's going on. You might also need to set the Conda environments if it's not set correctly. But yeah, so from the next class on, we will just be opening a notebook, and we will be going through the contents of the notebook and running the code and seeing what it does and how Python works.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. This is great. So one thing I want to say that I always have a lot of trouble installing these things. And once you have this running, this is the difficult part. The rest is easy. So I think definitely don't give up, and we'll help you get things running.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, this is the biggest hurdle. The main problem is that everyone's computer is different, and for some reason it's not standardized when things are installed. Sometimes it'll install miniconda in your home directory, sometimes it won't. So those are where the problems come in. Okay, so in terms of the errors, the get fatal repository, you should use the GitHub link. I think that looks like it's the error. Not, for some reason it used your path to your Conda environment. I don't, yeah, that's pretty weird. Closing the program properly on a Mac, you can just go code quit. On Windows, I think you can go file exit. Yeah, I mean, either way will work. You don't need to really worry about closing it. It will remember, it'll shut itself down gracefully, and it'll start up again next time where you left off.
Okay, I mean, I think we should take the rest offline now because we run out of time.
Yeah, no, exactly.
So yeah, so we'll send you an email with more information, and then there will be a lot more on Stack Overflow.
Yeah, no, exactly. Someone, yeah, any problems you've had, make sure that the question hasn't been asked on Stack Overflow yet. And if it has and you have the same problem, just upvote it. So click the little arrow to give it more votes, so we can see how many people are having the same problems.
Mark, can you quickly go over what an environment is? I think there were a couple of questions about that.
Yes, I do have stuff on that later on, but basically what you can think of it is your computer needs Python to run, and it needs certain versions of packages and things to run properly. What an environment allows you to do is have different configurations of Python on the same computer. And by having different configurations, you're not going to have conflicts between different versions of Python. Something else that happens a lot of the time is you might be developing a program and it uses very specific versions of packages. And if you get newer versions, it might break everything. So having different environments allows you to have different versions of Python and packages installed. So it's not going to break everything when you update another program you're writing's packages. We will go over that in probably the next lecture. Somewhere in, yeah, I think I do actually have a slide on why you want to use Python environments. I'll move that to the next lecture and we'll go over it. All right, but for now, I think we're going to stop the video so that the file is large.
Yeah, I'm stopping the recording now.
Okay.